Welcome into the latest episode of Floor is Yours, an extension of 5 on the Floor here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Tonight's episode and all episodes going forward, sponsored by our friend Mark Brown Esquire. You can find him at markbrownpa.com. We've talked to you before about the $295 closing fee that you get. Actually, I'm taking care of that with myself next week that you get from Mark Brown. But also, you got to do some estate planning. If you're a young single individual, it's important to have a meeting with someone like Mark to make sure that you're making the right decisions, just in case you're unconscious, incapacitated, or something else happens. If you're young with a family, you need to meet with them to set up plans for your kids. So do your estate planning with Mark Brown. Again, find him at markbrownpa.com. This is a small firm, allows them to be focused on you, not all over the place. They also do a ton of real estate with their title company, so everything is in-house. The phone number is 954-568-5678. That's 954-566-5678. And again, it's markbrownpa.com. All right, let's get to tonight's Floor is Yours. Here is the panel. There you go. There's Mark. There you can find him at markbrownpa.com. We'll throw that up there again before we go. We got Ricky J. Mark. We've got Marco Romo. And we've got Greg Sylvander. So no Alex tonight. That's okay. He'll be back with us most likely tomorrow after the Laker game. Let's get right to it. Here's the question for tonight. You've got a Laker team that's coming in limping. We know that, obviously. No AD, no LeBron. So this is not the same kind of challenge that it was supposed to be. But with that being said, the Heat are an inconsistent team this year. They go on good runs, they go on bad runs. And it's supposed to be tied to who's healthy and who's not healthy. But it doesn't seem like they can build the kind of momentum that lasts. So I'll start here with you, Greg. How do they build that type of momentum? Now that there's no – look, They added Dedmon. We don't know when he's going to play, but they've added Oladipo. They've added Bjelica. They've added Ariza. There are no excuses at this point. They're healthy, right? I mean, Kendrick Nunn's healthy, and he's not playing. So at this point, how do they build consistency?
It's a great question, and they better figure it out quickly because they're about to go on a pretty treacherous West Coast trip. And I feel like this is like a low-hanging fruit game that they got to get. Memphis was similar in that, you want to get that one on your home floor. But this Laker game with no AD, no LeBron, there's no excuses. They got to get it because then when you go on the road and you're at Portland, Phoenix, Denver, Minnesota, and then you come home surprised to Brooklyn, I just feel like we're going to find out right now whether this is a team that's going to be in a play-in tournament or it's going to be a team that gets a week off prior to the playoffs really kicking off and lets those play-in teams beat each other up. I feel like this stretch right now, whether they go on a losing streak like they have been or whether they rebound off that loss to Memphis and figure it out quickly is going to be paramount.
Yeah, a lot of Marks in there, as Ariel mentions. And let's go to another Mark, Marco Romo, and then we'll get to Ricky J. Mark after that. Marco, a lot of complaints about the defense last night. But the reality is, Memphis made an ungodly number of corner threes, which I know the Heat were kind of forcing them to. But the Heat are still 7th in the NBA in defensive efficiency. That has not been the problem. So I'll ask you more of this. How do they establish consistency on offense?
Well, I think they've actually been you've seen the corner get turned around there. You've seen Tyler. He's hitting 40% since the All-Star break. I think he has something like 18, 6, and 6 on 45 and 40 splits, which is pretty good. And I think the offense was starting to turn the corner. It wasn't the problem last night either. It was the defense. And the way you saw the last 4-game losing streak start, it was because the offense wasn't there. There was a lot of trade stuff going around. The team was in flux in a way. And I don't see another streak like that happening, fingers crossed, unless they're playing a bunch of good teams in a row like that. I expect them to go 2-2 in that road trip. I think that's when you'll be like, oh, okay, they've kind of turned around. I don't expect them to win that game in Denver. That's like an automatic L. Yeah. Everybody knows that. But other than that, I think they've turned the corner offensively. It's about adding that with your defense because the defense was the thing that you relied on. And that wasn't there last night. And that's a whole thing that I can get into about the schemes and all that. The dribble penetration that they haven't given up was given up on last night. They couldn't keep anybody in front of them. Jimmy Butler uncharacteristically let a lot of dudes by him. It was very weird. But I think the offense is there, or is starting to get there. You've seen Duncan just go absolutely crazy I think he's back, and I think that pretty much sets off their offense. And I think they'll be fine there. It's about adding that and then bringing back your defense, which I think I have a feeling they're gonna bring it all together. That might just be me, looking with rose-colored glasses, but I think I see them turning around the corner.
Yeah, but one of the issues, and I'll go to Ricky next. One of the issues is it seems like when they play better offensively, they relax on defense. It used to be that Heat teams would play off their defense and it would feed into their offense. We've talked about that with the Big Three. They really haven't put it together at all this season. Like when their offense has been better, their defense hasn't been there. When their defense has been there for long stretches of the season, their offense hasn't been there. Ricky, looking at past Heat teams, like this just feels like an uneven season. Like I feel like we're waiting for that run because maybe not a 30-11 type run, maybe not like a 27-game winning streak type run, but they had one run this season, right? They had one run, but I'm still waiting for, okay, give me a 12-4 now. Give me, and it just, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's happening. Rick.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm reminded of three specific Heat teams. The 2004-2005 team, that was more based on defense. The 2005-06 team, which kind of switched it a little bit. They turned on their defense when it was necessary, but it was very clearly a more offensively oriented team. And you have the 2011-2012 Heat team, which basically allowed their defense to create their offense because, as we remember, Eric Spoelstra focused mainly, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were at Boca Raton during training camp that preseason, or the Bahamas, one of the two. They basically decided we're going to focus on making sure our defense is on par. And then in the following years, you were able to see the defense and the offense come together. So this season, the way this team is, I think with the way they're currently constructed, I think they really do need to allow their defense to create their offense, at least for the time being, because right now there are some growing pains that need to happen. I hope it happens very quickly, considering what is up for Miami in the coming days and weeks. But ultimately, yeah, I think their defense needs to create their offense, and it reminds me a lot of some of those three teams that I just mentioned.
All right, let's go to it. I lost a little of that, so you guys have to catch me up on that because my connection was bad here. But let's get into the other topic because I see Marco's name there is worried about Goran. We talked about this on the pod last night. So, Marco, I'll let you start, and then we'll kind of rotate around. The reality is they don't get to the finals last year without Goran Dragic. I mean, inserting him into the starting lineup and the consistent offense that he gave them, particularly to give Jimmy a break at times, and then obviously we saw in the finals when he couldn't do it, it all fell on Jimmy. That was critical. I do believe that the break he had was too short. He came back from that injury too quickly, particularly at a guy his age. So I will ask you the same question that I asked on Twitter today. There's three options with him, basically. You could just continue to play him through it. You could give him some occasional rest, or you could literally shut him down and play Kendrick Nunn now for the next 3 weeks. What do you do?
Wow. The shutting down thing feels a little extreme to me. I think I like to give him a rest day here and there, like he's a baseball player or something. Because you're going to need him in the playoffs. That's what you paid him $20 million in the offseason to do, to show up in the playoffs. You're hoping that he turns on the switch, and that's what every Heat fan kind of hopes at this point, because you haven't seen a lot of it on the court. On the court, you've seen him settle a lot for the mid-range, like step backs. He's not getting to the rim, as you pointed out a lot. It's kind of worrisome, but you hope that he has one last little burst in his step in the playoffs. And you're hoping that with the Vic additions, and you're not going to have to rely on him to be that guy to get to the rim as much. But you're hoping to save him in a way. You're hoping to, let's say you're trying to get his production out of three guys in total. You're trying to get Tyler to be the shooter that he was, you're trying to get Vic to be the driver that he was, and maybe Kendrick some spot minutes to be the second level guy that he was. You're hoping to make up those minutes for now until the playoffs come. You just don't know if a guy in his late 30s is gonna show up in the playoffs like he did last year. You can't expect him to do that. That's too much for a guy his age off a short off season to do that. But it's tough to watch him right now. It feels like he's a shell of himself, kind of like those late Wade years. But you're hoping Wade did against the Sixers that year,
Right.
shows up.
And by the way, Lynette just commented she's a sponsor of the 4th Floor here, so let's get into insurancebylynette.com, by the way, if you're looking for insurance. Can Dedmon play now? I don't think he's quite ready. I think the signing him or the movement towards signing him was because they needed to sign somebody by Thursday. It doesn't necessarily mean they're pushing him into the rotation anytime soon, so I wouldn't anticipate that. Back to Dragic, Greg, you weren't with Alex and I last night, and Alex and I kind of got into some of the concerns here. I think we all love Goran. We want Goran to play at a high level. We want him to finish his career, on a high note. But we don't really get fairy tales a whole lot, and his game in a lot of ways has been built on burst, right? It's been built on his ability to turn the corner, and like Alex said last night on 5 on the Floor, he cannot turn the corner right now. So what do you do with that?
It's difficult. That first step is everything for him because he's not necessarily so fast, but he has a really fast, quick first step, and getting to it, turning the corner, like you say. I'm almost in the camp of not shutting down Goran, but definitely scaling back his minutes in a large way, because if you're going to have any kind of run in the playoffs, it's predicated on Goran Dragic reaching some level of what he was last year in the playoffs. And even if he bottles it up for 2-game stretches in postseason series, that's huge. And this is the other part of it that I just can't ignore. When you acquire Victor Oladipo and you're staring a, let's say, max contract extension in the face of him, Victor Oladipo's got to figure out how he's going to, make up for whatever is not happening with Goran Dragic. So there's a part of me that feels like the team should actually even put more responsibility in Vic's hands while Goran is kind of getting back to being the Goran that we know and love. And then obviously they're already trusting Tyler to play every fourth quarter. But I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to give more to Vic and see how he takes it.
By the way, thanks for the comments. We'll read them. If you guys want to go to the Super Chats too, we always appreciate that as well. Ricky, we take a look at Dragic's history with Miami, with older players' history with Miami. They've been able to get something in the playoffs out of older players. I mean, they nursed Gary Payton through a season in 2006. He didn't have a great year. People don't remember that. But they got him to the postseason. He made big shots. Are we at the stage now where instead of, there's not going to be a Goran Dragic insertion into the starting lineup this year, not unless Vic is hurt, right? So are we at the stage now where really the best that we can hope for Dragic in the playoffs are moments, bursts, that kind of thing, but not the kind of sustained play we saw last year?
Yeah, it's interesting that Greg said what he said, because when I was watching the game just the other night, I was thinking to myself, could it be that, we've, in a sense, upgraded from Goran when we got Victor Oladipo, when you consider what their skill sets are? That's one thing. The second thing, I think Goran is at the point right now, especially considering he's a little bit older and it's taking him a lot longer to get back from some of the injuries that he's been dealing with this season. I think it would do this team well to treat him as almost like an end of quarter type of missile you fire at the other team. So that way it gives the team a little bit of momentum heading into the break. So that way when the guys are rested and they come back, they're able to pick up where Goran left off. Because at this point, you can't expect the kind of Goran that dropped, I think, almost 30 points in Game 7 of the 2016 first round against Charlotte. You can't really expect that, especially over the course of a series. You might get one good game. If you're really lucky, maybe two. But I think at this point, you'd be better served treating him as a missile that you fire at the other team while everybody else is resting, or even while some of the other guys are on the floor.
Another question came in. Do we think that this is the point where you start Hero over Duncan? I actually think it's the opposite at this stage. I think what Duncan's shown is that the gravity does matter. And also, if you have Oladipo in the starting lineup now, I think it's more imperative to have Hero off the bench, because if you're not getting what you used to get from Dragic, then essentially Hero becomes your sixth man. He becomes your anchor of the bench. So I don't think that's the direction they're going. I think Duncan Robinson, I don't know if he closes, but he is going to be in the starting lineup. Let's get to a couple of the wing guys here. Iguodala has had great moments this season. He's not looked great to me in his last couple of appearances. And again, I will ask the same question. Do they have the depth now that they can give Iggy some more time off now? You also don't want to burn out Ariza, right? And Ariza's going to be banging against bigger players in the starting lineup, so that's going to wear it out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think, and that's a good point by Jamal. I want to get back to that about the way that Pop used to use Manu, and I think that there will be some similarities there. But Ariza and Iguodala, how do you play that? I'll start with Marco.
I think you can afford to give Andre a little rest with Trevor's addition. I mean, you saw them take him or give him a day off with the hip stuff that he had, being old. I think you can afford to give Andre some nights off, just like you're going to be able to afford to give Goran some nights off. Mm-hmm. I think especially if, sorry to bring up this name again, KZ comes back, and if it comes back, I think you can give him in there for 5-10 minute bursts. I don't think it's imperative for you to rely on Andre, and I don't think you should rely on him this much. I don't think they don't think they need to at this point. And I agree with them. I think Ariza can give you enough of his production, and then guys behind him. I think you have enough guys to make up for that you don't need Ariza to be like that game against Golden State where he hit 2 clutch threes. He's going to give you moments. Ariza's not a big part of what the team is going to be for the rest of the regular season. Come playoff time, yes, he's going to have to play probably 20 minutes, 25 plus almost a night. But in the regular season, I think you can afford to give him more rest. The Trevor thing is interesting to me because he's had a whole year off. I don't think you're going to be worried as much about that.
Exactly.
I think maybe a couple of days off here and there, maybe, but I don't really see it. I think him having a year off, he's going to be like, oh, I want to play. I want to get out there and get these reps in with these guys. But the Andre thing is different to me. But, yeah, I don't know about Trevor.
Let's go ahead, Greg.
No, I just want to mention that in the 3 games in April, Ariza's minutes are up to 28. He's shooting 43% from 3. I think it's an indication, while Iggy's minutes have stayed right around 20 month over month, that they have a chance maybe there that they can squeeze a little bit more out of Trevor Ariza. He's been sitting at home.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, they may be able to squeeze more out of Kendrick Nunn here as well. Let's get to something that came up last night. I think Christian Hernandez put this up there, and it created a little bit of controversy. They drafted Precious, right? Precious is probably not going to be part of the rotation the rest of the year, I wouldn't think. He's going to be a spot player. They're going to use Bielitsa. Maybe they use Dedmon ahead of Precious as well. With that being said, with a win-now team, which they have, did they make a mistake not getting a plug-and-play player in the draft, whether it was a guard like a Bane or a Maxey, or whether it was a different type of big, instead of getting a guy who we've seen at this stage cannot play with Bam Adebayo? Did they make – I'll start with you, Greg, and then we'll go to Rick. Did they make a mistake?
I won't go as far as to say mistake because I feel like Precious still has value as a prospect around the league. So I just don't know that it's a situation where they've put themselves in a spot where they wouldn't be able to move him. He has value. So it's not a mistake. But for the win now and just the pure basketball point of it, if he didn't pan out as the primary big behind Bam or have the ability to play alongside Bam, there's no way that you do that and then you don't address the Jay Crowder situation. You did that within a course of a few weeks. That's a pretty big, you can't necessarily run from that. That's been a hole that they've had to chase and try to fill all season.
That's a good point by Ben. Short-term mistake, yes. Long-term mistake to be determined.
Yeah.
Probably so. Ricky, how do you address that? Where is this team, I guess, is the question, right? Are you still trying to build long-term asset base, or are you trying to get the guy that you could have plugged and played this year and he might have been more effective?
Well, I think for me, the problem with Precious all season has been that you're talking about a 6'7", 6'8" guy who Spo's playing at the center position. Even in small ball, he's undersized. That was going to be an issue from the start. Now, my hope for him this season was that he would develop a jump shot, but I don't think they're letting him do that just yet, the same way they weren't letting Bam shoot jumpers as a rookie just yet. It seems like they're really playing the long game with Precious, and I really do hope that they're eventually going to develop him as a 4 and not a 5, because it's very clear it's not like he has the bounce of a super athletic, undersized 5 like maybe Bam does. He doesn't have those things. He is a power forward, and the longer they play him at center, it's like when you have a player who's playing the wrong position in NBA 2K, his stats are significantly lower, but when you move him to the right position, all of a sudden he's an 82. This is where Precious can be. He's not there yet, but this is where he can be. I think ultimately, Miami, I believe, has one more roster spot. We don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to do anything with that spot, but my guess is that they'll probably use it to address some of those issues in addition to Dwayne Dedmon. Because I know Heat fans love when they see a new player arrive in Miami, they think that person's going to be a Whiteside-like savior for a few weeks. That's not the case. That was done to shore up some stuff, and I believe there were some luxury tax or whatever implications with that. But I think my eyes are focused on that final roster spot if they end up using it.
Okay, so let's get to this again. We talk about the record and all the rest of this. The Heat right now, I think, are in the 6th spot as we speak. I still think the 4 or the 5 is most likely for them. So we'll just go around and we'll kind of close here. Who is the opponent that you most want to see in the first round? Not that you can't really jockey for the Nets because you don't know if they're going to be first or second or whatever. Jockey to avoid the Nets. Who is the opponent you most want to see in the first round, and who is the opponent you least want to see in the first round? Greg, start.
I would most want to see probably New York. That would be fun, so that Ricky and I can go back and forth a little bit. I would least want to see a completely healthy Charlotte team, and I'm just really looking at the 4-5 matchups because they've just had kind of like a very 03-04 Heat vibe to them.
Right.
That they're just having a lot of fun and they're hitting buzzer beaters and just I don't want to face them. I just want to sneak this in as we round out this conversation. If Brooklyn does ever get anything close to the stranglehold on the 1 seed, then sign me up for Milwaukee to avoid that bracket.
Well, then you're talking about 6 versus 3. So you'd actually – the problem with that, though, is then you got to play another elite team. Instead of playing maybe 2 to go to the finals, you've got to play 3 potentially. I don't know that I feel so good about that. But that's – I mean, I get it. I understand it. But I'd rather make sure I get out of the first round.
That's true.
And build a little bit of momentum. Marco, I'll go to you. Who do you most want to see? Who do you least want to see?
The cocky Heat fan in me wants to say I want to see Boston and burn them down, get Brad Stevens fired, and get Jason Tatum out of there somehow. I don't know. That's the cocky Heat fan in me. The smart Heat fan in me, I'd probably go with the Knicks. I think that would be like a grueling 4-game sweep that Miami gets. Like every game would be like in the low 90s. And like Bam making Julius Randle, putting him in jail. Sorry, Ricky. I think that would be probably the most fun and the one matchup I'd actually prefer. But yeah, the cocky Heat fan in me would say Boston just to watch them burn.
And who do you least want to play?
Least want to play. Oof, I think I like the Charlotte thing. Who else is in there? Atlanta doesn't really scare me. I think I actually have to agree with Greg with the Charlotte because they have a lot of fun. I still think Miami would probably handle them in 5 games, but it'd just be no fun. The 5 games would be they would be so annoying to get through.
Well, there would be a Malik Monk game or 2, particularly if I tweeted about him. Ricky, who do you most want to see? Who do you least want to see?
Who do I most want to see?
I know who you want.
Man, I wonder.
I'm
here. Tell you what. You know what? You know who I most want to see? I most want to see the Charlotte Hornets because they're arguably the easiest team out of all of them. LaMelo Ball is out for the season. He's not coming back for the playoffs. And here's the thing: when you've got a kind of aging veteran team,
do we know that?
If Miami can
I don't know that.
No, I'm pretty sure. His wrist, I'm pretty sure they're going to hold him out. But okay. If Miami's able to sweep them in the playoffs, which none of those guys are prepared for, then you give your bigs, your older guys time to rest for the second round. You hope that everybody beats the heck out of one another in all the other bracket spots. In the second round, I'd say maybe, I don't know, who knows, maybe a Sixers team. I could see this Heat team smacking the Sixers unexpectedly because remember, the Heat have Jimmy Butler, and there's some history there. And it's poetic justice for what the Sixers ended up doing to Miami when Wade first came back. Who would I least want to see in the first round? I think Boston might be a very annoying team in the first round, especially given the situation that Miami's going to be likely in heading into the first round. So I'd probably say Boston. I'm not terribly I'm not really that scared of most of those teams, except for maybe Atlanta. I mean, you never know. Trey Young, Trey, is that his
Yes.
name? Trey Young.
Yes, Trey Young.
Sure, whatever.
Trey Young.
Trey.
Okay.
He might actually. I'm worried that he might go for 40 in multiple games and pretty much ruin Miami. That I could see that happen. So that's what I got.
All right,
This
Flores
just
Nola.
feels like who are you gonna take in 5 games? Who are you? Yeah.
Well, Heat in 5, and to me, the opponent that I would want to see is Atlanta.
I want New York, yeah.
Atlanta has a 1 and out feel to me. Plus, you always beat Nate McMillan teams when it matters. So, they're not going to win a first round series. To me, that's the easiest. They've had answers for Trey. I mean, Trey has not gone off against them this year, and now they have another answer in Oladipo. So Trey doesn't really worry me that much. John Collins would worry me some, but Trey does not, and John's playing for a contract, obviously. To me, the one I would least like to see, honestly, it's Boston, only because I still think they're 2 top-end guys, and if Kemba could get healthy, I mean, there is material there. They just haven't done anything with it this year. For entertainment purposes, I'd like to see the Knicks. I mean, that's sort of how that goes. All right, follow all these guys. Marco Romo, he's got the little underscore under him next to him because he's free now. We've got Ricky J. Mark, follow him on Twitter. Greg Sylvander. We lost them because of Trey. I understand. Yeah, okay. Greg, probably so. Greg Sylvander, follow him. We'll be back tomorrow night after Lakers Heat. MarkBrownPA.com. You're doing estate planning. You need to get your title done, any of that kind of stuff, closing on it. $295 for the title. That's the gentleman. I see him at Dolphin games all the time. MarkBrownPA.com. Thanks for the sponsorship. Thanks for the questions.
Knicks in 7.